Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Mike Lugo. I'm with the technical support team here at Bolide. Again, welcome everybody for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon for some of you. We will be going over our Bolide NVR features, configuration, best practices for the NVR. I'm going to take you from start to finish. What an installer would do upon opening up the box and setting up the cameras for the first time. Just a quick overview on Bolide. We're a CCTV manufacturer. We've been in business for over 30 years. We specialize in CCTV cameras, accessories, the whole 9 yards cable. We have offices all over the world in Barcelona, Dubai, El Salvador, Mexico, Colombia, and our main office is here in San Dimas. I want to remind everybody, if we have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I will get to them. Also, if you want to say wait till the end, you have any questions, I'll get to them at the end, but we are going to go through everything and let's get into it. So what am I going to be going over today? We're going to be going over, first of all, what's in the box, overview of the NVR. We're going to go through some setup, some configuration, and then at the end, I'm going to go over a complete menu overview of the NVR. Okay. So, first of all, what do we get in the box? Upon opening the NVR, of course, we get the NVR. We get a user manual. If it's a 8, 16 channel or higher, we're going to get some rack mount ears on it so we can rack mount these if need be. Power supply, a mouse, and some screws for the hard drives. Very simple stuff. So, the front of the NVR, we've got the USB and we've got a bunch of indicator lights, a power light, an HDD light, a play light, and a record light. We do get a lot of questions sometimes. How come my lights are flashing? They do flash when the recorder is in record mode. You will see the record flash and you will see the HDD flash. We get a lot of questions about that. So let's take a look at the back really quick. So going from left to right, that first little circle you see, there's the power. And right next to it is an alarm in and out. The recorder comes equipped with alarm in and out functions as well as some of our cameras. But if you do have alarm relays or something that connects to an alarm relay, we can do that to the back of the recorder. Also, we have an audio in and out, line in, line out RCA. Which comes equipped with a VGA. Every NVR has a VGA and HDMI plug. Our higher capacity NVRs have multiple HDMIs. There is a USB button, a USB plug in the back, as well as our WAN and our LAN. What's the difference between the WAN and the LAN? WAN gets connected to your router. LAN is for all your cameras, right? Pretty simple stuff. Let's get into it, right? So, give me a second here. And we are going to go into our recorder. All right. So out of the box, we have to set up a password. Unfortunately, I wanted to show that process, but my card wouldn't allow me to do so and still show it unless I set the resolution. So we'll just go from the point of right after making your passwords. The first thing we need to do is I'm going to log into my recorder. I did create a password. And you can create the password of your choice. Mine is just a default that I use all the time. All right. And I'm going to get in right now. First thing I'm going to do is go to some of these menus on the bottom. But before that, I'm going to plug in one of my cameras directly into the recorder. So it's plug and play. I'm going to bounce around a little bit initially because this is the initial setup, right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go to setup. I'm going to go to my channels, right? You see that I have nothing plugged in. I'm going to plug in a camera first. And that's going to go into port 1. And this is getting plugged directly in to my NVR, not in a separate switch. This is using the PoE switches, PoE ports on the back of the NVR. And I'm going to plug that in and I can check my PoE power here. And I can see that I am pulling power. So it's going to take about a minute or two for it to actually populate that. In the meantime, I do have some cameras on my network. And I'm going to show you how to add an OnVIF camera and a Bolide camera, both, right? So the first thing I'm going to do, come down here to my search. And I'm going to search my network. I'm going to see what I have. I have a bunch of stuff on my network. I picked a couple cameras out specifically. And the first one I am going to choose is my 180. And that's my .37 right here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to add. And I can also add what channel I want to add to. So I want to add to channel 2. And I'm going to select my password, put my password in. And this is adding a camera on a separate switch. Because I plugged my first camera in to my PoE. This is my second camera. You can see my first camera has already populated. I can always hit this state button, hit the play. There's my camera that's directly plugged in, right? I'm going to go ahead and close that. And here's my second camera that I added on my network. And you can tell because of the IP address. Any camera that you plug into the NVR is going to have a 1010 address. And of course, any camera that I add from my network is going to have a different address. In this case, a 192 address, right? So I added camera directly plugged in. I added a Bolide camera that is on the network. And the third thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hit search one more time. I'm going to add an OnVIF camera. So search again. I'm looking for my OnVIF camera. Here we go. It's very easy. Hit add. Just like I added a Bolide camera, it adds the same way. The only difference is, I'll put my password in first. Okay. You know, some of these settings that I have here, the only difference that I need to have here is my protocol. My protocol is OnVIF and not Bolide. So make sure my OnVIF is selected, put my password in, add, go ahead and cancel, and I'll wait for this camera to populate. And there's my third camera. Awesome. So as an installer, we always want to plug our cameras in first, make sure they're working, make sure our cables are good. Once that's all up, the second thing I always recommend doing, because you want to take care of the most simplest things first, is go ahead and go over to our system and then time and date, right? You want to make sure your time and date is correct. I always recommend using NTP because it's a network time protocol. It's going to automatically update the time for you. You can see here that my time is wrong, and I purposely did that so I can show you guys how this works. Us here in California, we use GMT -8. So I'm going to go ahead and select -8. I'm going to update now. Time is updated. I'm also going to change my format. This is preference to 12 hours. I'm going to go ahead and update now as well. And always turn on if they do observe daylight savings. Make sure that is on as well. So apply. I can go back to my time and date. Okay, this didn't take. Let me save it again. -8. Update now. And apply. And let's change this over. So you always want to make sure your time is correct. Very important. You forget to do your time. When you go back and do playback, you're going to see that you're not going to be able to find video because the time's not correct. So once those two things are done, we're ready to rock and roll. That's the most simplest things you can do. I want to go over some of these menus now. So customers might ask, how do I change my views? What are some of the things? What are some of these buttons mean here at the bottom, right? So starting from right to left, when you bring your mouse down to the bottom, you see there's a bunch of buttons here at the bottom. First couple of them are going to be layouts. I can do a 4 layout, a 9 layout. By the way, this is an 8 channel that we're working with. And I have more defined layouts. I can do a 6 or an 8. The higher capacity NVRs have more layouts. Of course, whatever capacity they are will have max out at that layout that they have, right? Second button here is for cycling. If you want to do, cycle through specific cameras, I have it set here for 1 at a time. Every 5 seconds, it's going to cycle. You can see my timer countdown, and it's just going to cycle through. So I can do this in a 4-channel layout. Different layouts I'm able to do this with, right? So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And then we are going to, next button here is instant playback, right? So if I want to go directly to playback, I can also do playback from here, search, but we have a direct playback button on the toolbar. Makes it pretty easy. Third button is going to be audio. If the cameras are equipped with audio and we want to hear them out of the monitor, we can go ahead and enable that, put the volume up. We can hear that as well. Next button here is our stream switch. So by default, when you're viewing multiple cameras on the NVR, you're going to be in substream. If you do change over to mainstream, you'll notice that sometimes it's a little too much for the NVR to handle. We do always recommend looking at your live view in substream. And this only affects when you're plugged directly into the NVRs. This doesn't affect when you're viewing through the VMS or you're viewing through your phone. This is only an HDMI connected directly to the recorder. Next one is aspect ratio, right? If I change this, we can go to 4:8, 4:9, or 16:9. We want to keep it in stretch. That's the best we're going to get, right? And then my next button here is going to be preview quality. You know, I can do balanced or smooth. Balance is obviously going to get better quality in terms of it showing live. You can make it smoother, but we want to have a balanced view when we're looking at these. And then lastly is going to be reset channels. What this is you can always move these channels to any order that I want, right? So now I have channel 1, channel 3, and they're mixed up. If I want to automatically go to my default order, I can hit this button and it's going to automatically make it, 1, 2, and 3 again, or, put them in sequential order. Lastly, on the right side, we have a connected little icon stating that our NVR is connected to the network and we do have connectivity. That's what that little mark is there. And then an arming, disarming button. And this is going to allow you to arm or disarm certain features in the NVR. I'll go over that a little bit later, exactly what it does, turn on and turn off. But just for sake of going over the icons, we're just going to continue to go. And then I can turn on any lights and sirens all at once for all the cameras with one button here. And then manual, this is for alarm in and out. Like I said, the NVR does have an alarm in and out option in the back. I'm able to turn these on manually with one click of a button here. And lastly is this here, system information. Any information that we need to get from the recorder. If you want to see your QR code, if you need to scan it, scan the QR code to get on your phone. You can do that here. Channel information, record information, and network state all here on this button without having to log into the recorder, right? Pretty simple stuff. Continuing, I want to continue just really quick to go over these menus we have on the camera itself. When you left click the camera, and these are all for live, right? Directly at the recorder. We can do a start manual record. Let's say you're not recording 24/7, you're only recording motion. You see something go on, you want to start a manual record, you can do that here. You want to take and capture an image, that's this second icon. Third icon is going to take you to instant playback, so it's going to take you exactly to what's happening within the last minute of that recording. Zoom, this is digital zoom. So you'll notice here when I click that, I'll have a little second window here, and I can zoom in with my mouse, and I can move this around the zoomed image, right? Our next icon is switching the stream, just like I did on the toolbar here. I can do it for individual cameras. So I can switch between substream, see my substream's not as clear, and my mainstream, right? And then if the camera is equipped with lights and sirens, I can also enable these here at the camera. So my light, my siren, my warning light, which is my red and blue light, and then of course two-way audio if the camera is equipped with it. And this last button here is a customized tag. If you see something going on, I want to tag this video at the moment, I can go back and view those tagged tag scenarios that I had later on, right? Okay, so that takes care of pretty much all the buttons and all the icons you see at the live screen. Let's jump into the recorder. So let me come back in here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to setup. Inside setup, you see there's many menus here. We're going to go through each one. I'm going to try to get through it. Try not to take too much time. It's a lot to go through. It's a lot to take in. But at least we'll have this video to go back and play. You can play this for your customers. You can play this for installers, for your own crew. Use it as a tool later on to go ahead and go back and learn a little more about the NVR. So first menu we're going to go through is the channel menu. And we'll touch a little bit on this briefly when we added the cameras. But there's a couple other menus that we also have in this area. So we went through channel. We know how to add cameras to the NVR. There's another button here that I do want to show, an automatic camera addition. This is just going to find any cameras on the network and automatically add them. You don't always want to use this option because sometimes you might have cameras you don't want to add. You might have another NVR that you have. For whatever reason, you might not always use the automatic camera addition button. So, but it is there to help to make life easy. And we went over the PoE power as well. This is going to, if you are using the PoE ports in the back of the NVR, it's going to show how much power is drawing and how much power you have left to consume on the NVR. And one last thing that I do want to go in this section, go over, is your bandwidth, total bandwidth. So every recorder has a total bandwidth in order to add cameras and a bandwidth being used. So I'm only using 17 Mbps of a total of 128 Mbps for 8 channels. So that's more than enough to add 8 4K cameras. We have more than enough bandwidth, but sometimes higher bandwidth cameras are added, and so we just have to be mindful of this total bandwidth that we have here. So something to keep in mind. Okay, let's move on to the next button here, which is live. So this is the OSD, the on-screen display. Live meaning live at the camera. And there's a bunch of different stuff that I can view and mess around with when I'm looking at the live view. So if I go ahead and go into setup, you'll notice that I have some stuff here. Let me change this view. Let's go to this view's a little better view for us. You'll notice that I have some time, and I also have some other stuff here that I can adjust, right? The first thing is channel name. Let's name this test camera. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and name that there. And I'm just gonna go down these in order. Time format, what's the format that I want? Usually in the state, we do month, day, year. So I'm gonna change that as well. We wanna change our time format to 12. Of course, that's preference. If you wanna use 24, go ahead, but 12 is more preferable for me. Refresh rate of the camera. And then I also have the option to show or not show the time and date stamp on the camera. So I'm gonna go ahead and apply that just so I can show you. There's my camera name test, right? So I can move this around. I don't have to have it in the default spot if it's interfering with my view of the camera. I can move these around anywhere I need to be. I can apply that, and you can see that that moves around. Let me check a different channel here. Okay, this one has, some cameras have this, older cameras don't. Auto text color. So what this does is change the color of the text on the OSD. You can see here that it's white, but if I put it to a white background, it's going to be hard to see against it. So go ahead and apply that, and you'll notice that I have a black background, and now it makes it pop a little bit against the white background, right? And of course, lastly, there's some color adjustments. If you want to adjust any of these, you shouldn't have to. Our cameras are pretty optimized out of the box, but this option is there for you. Okay, so that's pretty simple stuff. You can go into the setup and set it up here and see it visually. If you know what you're doing already, you also have it on a slide here. You can do it directly from the recorder and do multiple channels at once, right? So that's our live view, our OSD views. Next, we're gonna go to image control. Pretty important. This is a pretty important option. Once you get the cameras installed, they're up and running, you have them mounted, and now you need to do some adjustments for the customer, you know. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna firstly go into my first camera, because this one has a different image modes. I'm gonna go over some of these modes. So full color camera, what does that mean? A lot of our cameras now are equipped with full color, meaning that the camera has a white light on it, kind of like a spotlight. What this is going to do is to keep the camera in full color at nighttime. It's not going to go into night mode. It's not going to use the IRs and go into black and white. It's going to keep that white light on and make sure the camera stays in color mode and gives it enough ambient light to keep it in that mode. If we do want to go to use night vision or black and white, we're able to do that. We want to make sure that we do change this to day-night mode. So now the camera is going to automatically detect when there's not enough light and go ahead and turn on those IRs and go into black and white mode. And then lastly, There is a smart illumination. We don't use much. This is going to turn on all the lights in the camera. So if the camera has white light, red and blue light, it's going to go ahead and turn those on automatically. The white light kind of drowns out the warning light, so I don't really recommend this setting, but it's an option that's there. So for now, I'm going to put this in day-night mode, and I'm going to bounce back in a little bit and show you a little bit more about this. But let's continue to go on along this menu. So IR cut mode. This is how the camera is going to turn on its IRs, right? So I can keep it in day mode. Day mode is going to keep the camera in color, but not turn on the white lights, right? So if I want white lights at night, I'm going to put it in full color. But if I don't want those white lights on, I just want to have it in color mode. Maybe I have enough ambient lighting in the image where I don't need those lights on. I can put it in day mode. It doesn't go into black and white mode. It's going to stay in color, right? And then I can do black and white mode, which is going to force it into black and white mode and turn on those ARs. You can see in my image, I just forced that on. Black and white came on. You can see you have a little bit of reflection from my IRs on the bottom. And then image. So this just means that the camera itself is going to detect how much light is there and automatically adjust when it needs to be in day, when it needs to be at night. And then IR cut sensitivity. This is how sensitive or how much ambient light needs to be in the image in order for it to convert over, right? By default, it's 1. If I need it to be more sensitive, I can increase that here. And then you notice there is an IR control. So this allows me to control the beam of IRs. So if I need a really bright, really dark, and I need a really bright black and white image, I need the IRs to have a lot of power. I can put them at 100, or if I need the image a little darker, I can adjust that. But we also have a smart IR feature. What is smart IR? If you guys aren't familiar with it, the camera is going to, well, the sensor on the camera is going to be able to say, hey, I need to improve my light beam. I can increase it. It'll increase it and decrease it. The camera will make that adjustment for you. Moving down the line, if I need to flip the image, I can do that. I can do a vertical flip, or I can do a horizontal flip, right? And then I can also, once I do that, adjust 180 if I need to turn the camera 180 degrees. Some of our cameras do have a corridor mode. Let me see if I have a camera. Yeah, corridor mode is going to give you a 90-degree flip on it. So you'll notice that it's going to give you a longer horizontal view, right? That's going to be that. So let me go back to channel 2 here because it has more options. Okay. So the other very important option that we do see here is exposure compensation. So our cameras are equipped by default with WDR, which is wide dynamic range. For those of you who are not familiar with what wide dynamic range is, it's a sort of highlight condition setting. When there's too much light in the background and the picture in the front's a little dark, it's going to allow the image to brighten up a little bit in the foreground. Let me turn it on just so you can see a face. Maybe you'll see how that lightened up a lot. You'll be able to see a face that's too dark because of high background lights. ATMs, front doors, things like that. This is a really good option to use. And I can adjust the intensity of it as well, right? Moving down, highlight conditions. Very similar to WDR, but it's just going to make the image a little darker, the whole image darker, because it's too much light in the image. And you notice my image did get a lot darker when I turn that on, right? And again, I can control the intensity level of it. And lastly, backlight compensation. So backlight compensation, again, is another highlight condition setting. The difference in this one is it allows me to say, hey, I have too much light in the upper part of my image. I have too much light in the left part, wherever the image is, I can adjust just that part of the image, right? So, if the center's has too much light or right of the image, left of the image, I can adjust that there, and it's just going to adjust that part of the image. So those are the 3 exposure compensations. Use them. It's going to greatly improve your image than just a regular image coming out of the camera. If you have these, it's a tool, use them if they're available to you. So I'm gonna turn them off just so we can see the difference. I do have this camera inside, so when a camera is inside, you don't really have to worry too much about using it. But this is for outside light conditions. Moving down, 3D noise reduction. Again, you leave this on. You can put it on manual or disable it. This is just going to get any of the noise, any of that fuzz that you see in an image. On auto, it's going to automatically adjust and just give you the best image. Like I said, out of the box, most of our cameras are optimized already. You really don't have to mess with any of this stuff. Next is white balance. This is going to allow you to adjust red, blue, and green. We don't really need to mess with this. You can see when I turn that on, it automatically turns the image very purple. So we can leave that on auto as well. Shutter. This is control the way the light comes in. Leave it on auto, but if you do need to control light, one situation or a couple situations actually you need to change this is lighting. If you're getting scrolling in the lighting because of the refresh rate of the lighting that you have installed, I can adjust this and I can make my image darker or lighter just to help compensate those scrolling lights. The other situation you would put it in is if you're getting license plates. If you're using the camera as a LPR camera and it's just an LPR camera and you're having trouble collecting light at night, I can go ahead and make my image a little bit darker and it'll help to control the way the light bounces off the IRs, and I'll just get that license plate. Sometimes when the light's too bright, you'll get a whiteout and I'm not able to see anything. Keep in mind, it will make the image darker in the daytime, so you don't really want to mess with that too much. But again, if you do need to do it, it is there. And there is you see I made it really bright there, and be vice versa for darker conditions. Defog, this helps lighten up the camera. That should be on auto. Again, you don't really have to mess with this. This particular camera that I have is a 180 camera, so we can also fix the lens distortion on this camera. That's an option. If I turn that off, you'll see the edges of my image kind of go into that fisheye type, right? So we don't want that. We can go back to turning that on, and it's going to fill the whole, give it a nice stretch and fill the whole image with, fill the whole area with my image, right? And then of course I can adjust some field of view adjustments because it is a 180 camera. That's pretty much the image control area. And of course, every camera is individual. Again, I can make any of these adjustments that I need from here and set up and go ahead. Now, this image control only works for Bolide cameras. You can see here my third camera, that's an OnVIF camera. I don't have access to that camera because it's not a Bolide camera. If I wanted to make those changes to those cameras, I would have to make them before I plug it into the NVR. Log into the camera's web GUI, make those adjustments on the camera, then plug it into the NVR because you don't have access to those initially. There is a way. We'll get there. I'll show you in a minute on how to work around that. But for the most part, that's where we're at with that. That's image control. Next, we're going to go through PTZ. We don't really have to worry about the PTZ settings. They are digital cameras or IP cameras. There's some legacy settings on here. There's not, back in the days we used analog, Pelco P, Pelco D. We had to worry about baud rate and things like that. We don't have to worry about that with an IP camera. So we can disregard this IP section, IP PTZ section. Privacy zones, very important. Privacy zone, if you need to black out an area, dressing rooms, neighbors' houses, neighbors' windows, things like that. If I need an area blacked out and not being recorded, right, I'm going to black out there, and I'm also going to black out here, right? If I needed to have those blackout on my recorder, so they're not being recorded, I don't want my neighbors or a dressing room or anything like that to be on video. Go ahead and hit apply, and you'll notice those areas are blacked out and will not be recorded on my video. And I can do up to 6 different areas. And I can move them around where I need to be. All right. So let me go ahead and just enable that. And those will go back to normal. Okay. So motion, very important. That's another option. customers want to use. I want to make sure that my cameras are on motion detection and they're detecting motion. Very easy setup. First thing we want to do is make sure that our switch is on. Sensitivity by default is 5. The higher the sensitivity, the more sensitive it is, obviously. And then we're going to go into setup. Now, got a bunch of questions about this all the time. How do I know it's being detected? What does the red boxes mean? So red is what is being picked up by the camera. If I don't want an area to be detected or not to be a detection area of the of motion, I just go ahead and take the red off. So only this bottom part will be detecting motion, right? Again, set my area, make sure it's on, make sure my sensitivity is correct. And then we have a couple of options here. We have SMD by recorder, smart motion detection, and we have SMD by camera, right? SMD meaning we can not just have regular motion, which picks up any pixel movement, right? That's how motion works. Any pixel movement within the field of view, it's going to say, hey, that's motion. But a lot of times we get animals, trees, leaves, bugs flying by. We don't want all those triggers coming through. So I can say, hey, I only want to see pedestrians. I only want vehicles to be detected, or vehicles and pedestrians. I can make those options. And the only motion that's going to be detected is if it's a person or a vehicle, right? That's a little different from the AI stuff. So we also have an AI function that's people and pedestrians. That's a little different. I'll explain that in a little bit, but this is just motion. And the difference being really quick is when motion comes through on your playback, we have different colors. If you're familiar, I'll go through that in a bit, but our blue indication on the timeline is going to be AI. Our green is 24/7, and our yellow is motion. When AI is picked up, it'll be blue. When you're using the pedestrian and vehicle motion option, it's going to come through as yellow. So when I do the playback, I'll show you guys a little bit how that works, but just really quick, I wanted to touch on that. PIR works the same way. I don't have a PIR camera installed, but PIR is passive infrared. This is a true motion detection. So motion detection, for those of you who are unaware, works by pixel movement, like I mentioned earlier. PIR works by actual heat detection from the IR. So it's equipped with a IR that's going to detect motion rather than just detecting movements of pixels on the image, right? And then area of interest. This is just an area that I can select that's going to be of higher interest, right? And I can set an area to have more frames per second and higher quality in a specific area, right? Maybe that's my area. You know, I want that area only to have the highest quality. Everything else will be low quality. And so that's how we don't use this option too much, but it is there. You know, customers do ask, what does that mean? We're able to answer that question. That's going to be it for the channel section. It's pretty much, I know it's a lot to go over, but this, you'll spend a lot of time here once you set up for customers, just fine tuning everything, right? Next is our record button. Again, very important because we want to make sure that we are always recording at our highest quality, right? And that's our encode option. You'll see we have a couple menus up here: mainstream, substream, mobile stream. And we just want to go through each stream once we set up the cameras and make sure they're all optimized, right? Of course, we always want to record at our highest resolution, so we can always check that, make sure we're always on our highest resolution, always on our highest frames per second, right? Because we want to make sure we're recording the best quality. And our encode's H.265, right? Because that's going to be our highest compression. There are situations where you do need a different compression, but that's where you'll change it here. And then our encoding mode. So we have the option to do a constant bit rate, right? Or we can do a variable bit rate. Variable bit rate is going to adjust. The camera's going to adjust on what's going on in the image, right? If you're using a variable bit rate, if there's nothing going on in the image, it's going to have a lower bit rate, lower quality image. And then once something starts to move in the image, it'll automatically bump itself up to a higher bit rate. I always recommend doing constant bit rate. You just get a cleaner picture all the time, right? And then video quality, we don't have to worry about. The bit rate will control that. And then we can have a specific bit rate, right? So bit rate, just really quick, is the amount of data that the camera is chewing up while it's connected. Obviously, higher resolution needs a higher bit rate, lower resolution needs a lower bit rate. So we can always, have these bit rates set to, if it's a 4K camera, anything above 492, and we have options here, right? We really don't need to use an 8192 bit rate unless you're using a lower encoding format, right? A lower compression. So we don't have to worry about too much. So once this is optimized, we don't got to worry too much about what we do want to worry about is substream, because that's our view stream. This is more for view if you're viewing over your phone, if you're viewing from the recorder itself. My recommendations are always the best practices. From my experience, and I've been here a long time, set your substream to 640 by 480. I'm going to bounce back really quick just to show you that's a 640 by 480 view, right? You cannot tell that is a lower quality because it's a small image. And when I blow it up, that's my mainstream, right? That's my 4K camera. Now, if I go back to substream in a large view to show you, that's 640 by 480. Greatly, the quality went down greatly. So I'm not viewing my mainstream when I blow it up. You can see the difference, right? So again, mainstream, substream. And when we're viewing multiple cameras, we always want to make sure we're viewing our substream. So let me go back here. And when you're viewing live, you want to make sure that it is optimized for viewing. So again, my recommendations, best practices, 640 by 480. Frames per second doesn't matter. You want to have full frames so everything's fluent in the image. Again, we want the highest compression. We want it on constant bit rate so we don't have that image fluctuating too much. And then one thing I forgot to mention on the last one, it was audio. If you do have audio on the cameras, all the way to the right here, there's an audio option. We want to make sure that we turn that on for our substream as well as our mainstream, right? And I can scroll to the right here and make sure that my audio is turned on, right? So now I'm recording to my substream. Mobile stream, we don't really got to worry about. It's obviously the same as my substream. If you see the resolution here, right? 640 by 480. You do have the option to view it on your mobile device, but the mobile device is fine on substream. So by default, when you do open your mobile device, it's going to automatically go to substream. You're fine with that stream. You don't have to switch to the mobile stream. And lastly, I do recommend a bit rate for your substream is 512. That's more than enough throughput for the camera to have a nice image, right? And then lastly is audio. Again, if you are using the audio, I can control the volume that's coming out of my HDMI that I have connected. And then the input of the camera's microphone as well. So if I need it to be louder, I can adjust that there. And then audio codec. You do have it on a third party that requires G711U. You can add that as well, but by default, we use G711A. We don't really have to worry too much about that, but these are your audio settings, okay? The next menu, very important, is our record. So by default, out of the box, you'll notice that my stream mode is dual stream. What does that mean? It means it's recording mainstream and substream. We don't need to record both streams. It's going to take up more data. Situations where you would need to record both streams, when you have a slower network and you want to be able to see playback on your substream because it comes through faster, then I can record substream as well. But again, like I mentioned, you are chewing up more data on the hard drive. So if you have enough hard drive space, and go ahead and enable both. But if not, you're worried about, do I have enough hard drive space? You want to make sure that you just have this on mainstream. And I can put it on mainstream and I don't have to change them all. If you have a higher capacity, like a 64 or a 32 to go through each one, it can be very time consuming. I can just do a copy down here. Copy, and then copy to all the channels that I want to copy this to, right? So copy to all my channels, copy, hit OK, and you'll just automatically copy to my mainstream. And then right here, the next option is pre-record. This is for any triggers, motion triggers, AI triggers, pre-record. So if it gets a trigger, gets a record, it's going to pre-record before the trigger happened, 30 seconds before. So we want to make sure that that's on. We want to see what happens before the trigger gets met. And then lastly is if the camera is equipped with an SD card and we lose connection, this will automatically connect the camera back and get the recordings back on automatically, right? Very important, record schedule. So we get a lot of calls. I set up my recorder. I turned on my motion, right? I turned on my motion here. Motion's on. Sorry. Motion's enabled. I set up my motion, right? Set up my area. Made sure it was enabled. Why am I not getting record motion when I go and do my playback? Reason being, I need to set up my record schedule. So as you can see by default, I only have 24/7 recording. If I want to record motion, not just detect it, I turn on the detection. Now I want to make sure it records. I got to go to my button here on the side, click motion, and then highlight my timeline here. I'm showing the whole 24. If I didn't want to do motion the whole 24, I can adjust, from 8 in the morning to, 4 in the afternoon. I don't want to detect motion. I can go ahead and do that. Or I don't want to, let's say I don't want to do 24/7 on those other times, and I want to do, motion recording at night. I can go ahead and adjust that as well. So, with this setup here, I'm recording motion from midnight to 8 in the morning. I'm sorry, yeah, motion from midnight to 8 in the morning, and then 24/7 from 8 in the morning to 4, and then back to motion from 4 to midnight. So that's what that scenario would look like. I can do vice versa if need be. And again, I can copy this to all my channels. I don't have to go through each one. If they're all using the same record settings, I'll go ahead and copy that. And you'll notice when I go back to do my channels, they're all the same, right? Very easy, but very important that you get this part set up. Once you get your cameras installed, once you get your cameras fine-tuned, and you start to do the record settings, very important to go over this section. And then image capture. If you are taking still images, with not too many scenarios where you'll use this. I've had customers use this during like time lapse. They'll take a bunch of images and then go back and do a time lapse video of just the still images. You have that option. The option to do that there, and then of course you can set a schedule to these things as well, right? You can do 24/7 still images only of motion. And then I can also record. I forgot to go over that as well. Alarm input outputs. I did say there was alarm input outputs in the back of the recorder. I can have them triggered. So if I have an alarm input, let's say I have it connected to a front door opens up, it's going to trigger my alarm input. I can have it record off of that. So as soon as, I don't want to record motion, I don't want to record 27. I only want to record when that alarm input, the door is opened. That's when I want to start to record. I can do that. And then of course, lastly is that PIR camera device. It's going to do it for alarm, for record. Okay. Next is alarm. There's a bunch here. All these are the same. So I'm gonna go over one of them, and all the settings are the same for all of them. But you can notice this really quick. Alarm input, output, motion. These are the same settings for these three things here. I'm gonna go over each one, what they mean. Buzzer. This is an audible that comes out of the recorder itself. So this is kind of like an installer tool. If I want to make sure my camera is detecting motion, I want to make sure motion is working, I can have the NVR do a series of buzzes that come out, and I can set a latch time for how long those buzzes are going to go on. By default, it's 10. This can get annoying. Sometimes I do have end users who are just playing around with it, playing around with the NVR. They turn this on, and then they'll call the installer and be like, my recorder is buzzing like crazy. I don't know what I did. 9 times out of 10, they turned one of these options on, right? So every time there's motion, it's just constantly buzzing. So if you do get a call that is something the customer says or something you're experiencing, always go here, make sure buzzer's off. And there's a couple of different areas that buzzer can be turned on, but here's one of them, okay? So basically this section is going to allow us to determine what's going to happen when we get triggers, motion triggers, PIR triggers, alarm input output triggers, where I want to not just record. What do I want to do when I get these triggers? I can do more than just record. I can set an alarm out. like I said, the NVR does have an alarm in and an alarm out. You can connect this to your alarm system, right? So motion happens. I wanted to record, but I also wanted to trigger my alarm system to my building. I can have it do that, and I can just say, hey, motion here, put my alarm out, and it's going to trigger that relay to your alarm out and your alarm system, right? I don't have to record it. Maybe I just want a motion detection. I don't want it to record. I just want it to notify me. I can turn the motion recording off from here as well, right? Post record time is how long we're going to record after we get motion, right? So you can do up to 5 minutes. By default, it's 30 seconds. So I can do 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Usually 30 seconds to a minute is sufficient. As long as the motion is going on in the image, it will continue to record. Once the person leaves the image or motion stops happening, 5 minutes is kind of overkill. So 30 seconds to a minute is usually sufficient. Show image. Show image means that, let me jump back really quick. You see this here, this man running here. That's the show icon. It just disappeared because my motion stopped. I don't have to have those on the screen. That's what that option is there. Motion, show messages. I'm sorry. So I don't have to have those icons on the live view. I can have it send me an email. I can have it send it to an FTP if I have an FTP set up, and I can have it send still images or video. I can have it set. You can set up a couple cameras to do Dropbox or Gmail. And I will set up. I'll show you how that sets up later on. But I can have it set record to that. And you can send pictures to the cloud or videos to the cloud. I can have it go to full screen. If motion gets detected, it's going to automatically go from multi-view to single screen. Push platform. If you are using a third-party platform and they have push notifications, that's where you will enable that. And then lastly is voice prompts. And I'll go over voice prompts later down in this menu, but this is where you can enable it for motion detection, right? Again, I don't have a PIR camera, but those settings will be the same. Alarm input outputs, these are all the same. The only difference here is the state at which the alarm input output is set to. So by default, normally open, you usually have a normally open or normally closed switch, and I can adjust that here, right? And again, like I said, buzzer, alarm out, latch time, record, all those same settings are there. Combined alarm. So this means that I need to have multiple alarms in order to get a trigger, right? So I can still get notifications and stuff like that, but I don't want to record unless I get multiple alarm triggers. So I want to do motion with the alarm input output, or I want to do a motion with the pedestrian vehicle AI. So I can combine those alarms, and I have to have 2 triggers in order for it to get notifications and things like that. There aren't too many situations where you use this, but every situation is different, and there will be some where you will need to use that. PTZ linkage, pretty cool option. I can set my PTZ. I can set up to 4 separate PTZs, and I can have them go to a specific set preset to a camera. So, for instance, I can say on camera 1 or PTZ 1, I want it to go to channel 5, which is my channel 5 camera, and I want it to, when channel 5 detects motion, or any of my AI, any of my triggers, I want that camera to automatically go to that camera. So front door, have a camera at my front door, channel 5, my PTZ is doing its thing. Channel 5 detects motion or detects line crossing, my PTZ is going to automatically go to that camera's preset, right? So I can just link a PTZ preset to a specific camera. That's how that works. Pretty cool function. I don't think we use it enough. Yeah, but it's something we can use. Exception, again, very important. Get so many calls, recorders beeping like crazy. 9 times out of 10, somebody turned this buzzer on. And for this one's a little different. This is a good installer tool. Hard drive gets full. Hard drive error is a big one. Or video loss. You're not always constantly looking at the recorder 24/7. You might have it running in the background. You might not even have a monitor on the recorder. You might just, look at your cameras when something happens. Now, problem with that is something happens with the disk, goes bad. How are you going to know? Because you're not looking at your cameras. You don't. Or you have video loss. You lose a camera for whatever reason. It lost power or it's no longer visible. You can turn the buzzer on for these. That way the recorder will tell you, hey, something's wrong with the hard drive. Hey, you lost the camera. That'll cause you to go take a look at the recorder, open up your app or whatever you need to do to go ahead and check to see what's going on. So these are instances where you want to use the buzzer coming out of the recorder. So keep that in mind. It's a good tool. If you're not don't have a monitor directly connected to it. Alarm schedule. Another important one. The one we use the most here is going to be mobile push. This is for pushing notifications to the phone. There are instances, I've had many instances where customers do not want to get notifications that say during business hours. I only want to get them at night. And it goes for all of these options: alarm out, mobile, FTP, buzzer, voice prompt. The one that's used probably the most is mobile push. Business hours, I don't want to get notifications to my phone or notifications on my VMS. I can go ahead and no longer going to send any notifications because I turned that off. So keep that in mind. Sometimes if this is all not enabled, customer might be saying, I'm not getting any notifications. You always want to go check here, make sure that your timeline is set up correctly. That could be one reason why they're not getting notifications. Voice prompts. So a lot of our cameras are equipped with built-in speakers, or we do sell an IP speaker. And we can also have it come out of the monitor as well, if that's what you're doing. So, but we can have an audible voice come out of the microphone, and there's a couple ways to do it. We can do have one here. Let's see if I don't know if you guys can able to hear that. Probably not, but I can type out a phrase. Give it a name. I'll just name it test, right? Type out a phrase, and whatever I type here, that will verbally come out of the camera. Or I can upload a file. If I want to upload my own siren or upload a voice or anything like that, I can put it on a thumb drive, MP3, WAV file, or Windows Media file. Would be the 3 files we can upload. And again, those are pre-recorded. It could be a pre-recorded voice. It could be a pre-recorded siren, and have that come out of the camera as well. If you want to loop that, you can loop it, and you can set times. It'll loop all day if you want, or loop for 20 minutes. You can give it specific times, able to do that. And then lastly is IP cameras. Like I said, we do sell an IP speaker solution. Very easy. Hit the plus, give it a name, IP address, port, username, and we can add that IP speaker to the system, right? And then once that's added, you can bind it to any camera or multiple cameras on the system. Deterrence. A lot of our cameras now all have deterrence. This is another thing we get calls about a lot. And you'll notice that I have some options here. So there's light and warning light. What are the difference? I get a lot of questions. What's the difference? Well, light is the white light that's on the camera. I mentioned earlier about full color mode. And you'll notice I have the option to turn this light on and off. If I go back here to my image control and I turn this on full color mode, which means that light is going to be on all the time at night. If I go back to my alarm and deterrence, you'll notice that it's grayed out. Why? Because I have it set to automatically come on. So I can no longer use that function. If I do want to use the function, you have to turn it off on your image control. I get a lot of calls. How come my light's not working there? We're going to just put it back there. And you'll notice if I come back to my alarm deterrence, now I have that option. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go into setup. Very easy. Which light do I want to turn on? White light, red and blue light. make sure it's enabled. Once it's enabled, give me a duration. 60 seconds I've found is pretty sufficient. I can go higher if I need to be, up to 5 minutes. Same thing for white light. White light or red light, you keep it on for a specified amount of time. Same thing with my siren. I can turn my siren on, right? Set it for motion, any of my alarm triggers, except my siren volume, my duration, and then, of course, my schedule. Now, how I want the alarm to go off. Is it off motion? Any of my AI functions, make sure my schedule set correctly. It's pretty easy. A couple clicks and done. I think deterrence, I didn't go over that really quick. Same thing with deterrence. It also has a schedule. Whatever function I'm using, make sure that my schedule is set correctly, save it, and it's going to go ahead and trigger those things. And again, disarming. I mentioned disarming in the beginning. When I do turn on disarming, so it's a little confusing. When disarming is on, it's going to turn off all of these alarm actions, right? So if I turn this disarming on, so it means I'm turning it on to turn these off. Again, it can get confusing. If disarming is off, then this alarm actions are on, and I can do it per channel as well. And of course, it also has a schedule. So that's the alarm stuff. AI. I'm not going to go over all the AI specifically. That can be a whole webinar in itself. But I'm going to touch on how they work, how the alarms work, and stuff like that. So first, obviously, face detection. You want to make sure this is turned on. You can make sure the switch is on. Always apply when you make a setting, right? Give it a second. Once it is applied, you can go ahead and make your settings in the facial recognition options. I won't go over all of them. Like I said, it'll be a whole webinar in itself. Maybe our next one. It's a lot to go over. Back over here. And of course, we have many AI functions. So I'll go over those. Face detection, pedestrian and vehicle. Like I said, motion does have a option. This is specifically for just pedestrian vehicle. You get a little more options to turn on and turn off and adjust with this rather than just the motion. Perimeter intrusion is pretty self-explanatory. I create a perimeter. Anybody enters that perimeter, I'm going to get an alarm trigger, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. Line crossing, again, self-explanatory. I'm going to create a line. Anybody crosses that line, I'm going to get a trigger. Cross counting. This is going to count a specific number of people within the area that I create, right? So anybody comes into my area or comes out, I'm going to get a count of them, right? Heat map. This is high traffic areas. So real quick in statistics, I don't know if I have heat map. Let's see if I get no, I just turned it on. So heat map's just going to give me high traffic areas. This is good for stores. You want to see what aisles have a lot of traffic, or just whatever's coming throughout the day. I'm able to see that what's in the camera, so I can adjust my cameras accordingly. Crowd density, self-explanatory. This is going to tell me, give me a capacity, and once I reach that capacity, I'm going to get an alarm trigger. Queue length. Again, how long someone's in an area. This is kind of like a loitering option. If I have, I want to know if 10 people or 2 people are in a specific area for 2 minutes, I'm going to get a notification. Right? License plate, obviously, that's self-explanatory. If I want to capture license plates, I can do so. Right? Rare sound. Not used too much. There's a few options in there. Baby crying, if you do have a camera, maybe like a nursery, and you have the baby alone in there, you want to know when the baby's crying to give you a notification, you can do that. Dogs barking, gunshots, there's a few options that we have for that AI. Object detection, this is a good one. There's a lot of thefts, delivery thefts. I can set an area. If I get a package, I want to make sure that package is not stolen, or I want to get a notification when the package is taken. That's, object detection. Sound detection. This is a little different than rare sound. This is all sounds, right? Any sound that comes through, I want to get a notification. You don't really use this too much, but there are instances like maybe in a quiet space and something breaks, I want to know when any kind of sound comes through. That's that option. Video tampering. If anybody messes with the live view of the camera, you're going to get notifications saying, hey, someone spray painted it, covered the view. And an intrusion, inter-exit, inter-region, inter-exit. These are kind of the same. Intrusion, very similar to perimeter intrusion. Difference being this one is a specific box I can make. The other one had a predefined box. This one I can make my own box. Inter-region, self-explanatory. I make a box. Anybody enters this region, I'm going to get a notification. Exit region, the exact opposite. I'm going to create a box. And if anything exits this box, I'm going to get a notification. And then lastly, very important, is schedule. I can set a schedule to any of my AI functions that I'm using. I don't have to use them 24/7. Recognition. This is for database management. Out of the box, you don't got to worry about this here. This will automatically be checked. This is going to automatically check the recognition model. Like I said, don't got to worry about this. The NVR will choose it for you as long as this is checked, and the NVR will always have the newest model. Database management. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into this. This could be a webinar on its own. Just going to touch really lightly on what it means. This is how you add faces to the database. Your face recognition database. Notice there's multiple groups, and I can add up as many groups as I want. And if I hit the edit, I can go ahead and import and export faces that have been detected that the camera has seen, right? I just turned these on, so there's not going to be anything in there. I didn't plan on going too much into this. And I can add them to my edit list and my block list, and I can move them around from list to list. And once I create my database, I can export and import that database to multiple recorders, and I have to do it in each recorder. And same rules are from license plate recognition, database management. Again, once I build that database, I can do what I want with them. Again, I didn't plan on going too much into this. I just want to explain what it is. Probably our next webinar will be full AI and going into that part. But yeah, it's going to be a whole webinar. So no, we're already running kind of late, so we're trying to rush through this. Alarm. I went through the alarms on the regular alarms. These are alarms for AI stuff. You'll notice this is all the same stuff I went over for the alarms. Again, buzzer, alarm out, record, show message, same exact stuff. Basically, this is what I want to do when I get these triggers. Again, I don't have to just record. I can get notifications. I can get emails. I can do different things when I do get those alarm triggers. And lastly here, statistics. I can get statistics for specific AI functions that I turned on. Face recognition, how many people on these specific lists that I created came through, and get that information. Pedestrians and vehicles, how many pedestrians and vehicles came throughout the day. Cross counting, if I am using that function, it's going to give me a count of what I set up. Again, heat map I went over, and then specific reports that I want to pull for the day, right? And I can do daily reports all the way up to yearly reports. Network, don't got to worry about too much about this. The main thing we want to worry about is DHCP. Well, 8 times out of 10, DHCP is enabled. The only times you won't have to worry about this, or do have to worry about it rather, is when they have a complex network, if they have firewalls, if they have an IT team, and they want you to set a specific IP address and not have the router handed out, then I'll take off DHCP, and most likely they'll give you some network information you'll need to populate, and you can go ahead and do that here. On the right, this is the internal DHCP server, so anything that's plugged into the recorder, that's what this is here. And then lastly on this page is web capability mode. If you're having trouble, older web browsers might need to enable this in order to view them. PPPoE, this is an old technology. This is like old AOL when you used to have to log on to DSL. To use the DSL, you need a username information. I haven't seen this be used in many, many years. So normally have to worry about this too much. If there is any legacy equipment out there that has that, this option would be there. So SNMP, if the network admin's running any kind of network tools, they might need this option. It's there. They'll let you know about it. And then port configuration. Again, don't really have to worry about this unless they have specific ports that need to be changed on the recorder for their network. That's what you'll see here. And then at the bottom, P2P switch, if you want to turn the P2P option off. And then direct camera web access. This is a cool one, but it's only for remote access. I'll go over that when we do our remote webinar because it's a whole thing in itself. And then universal plug and play. Old, newer routers don't really need this. Older routers do for the most part. If you're having some port forwarding issues, you can go ahead and make these check marks here. Other than that, that's about all you have to deal with in general. DDNS, we don't worry about that too much anymore. We have P2P now. But again, if there are some legacy options out there and they do need DDNS, you can enable that. Email. We do occasionally get customers wanting emails, notifications. Don't use it too much anymore because we do have notifications that come through on your mobile device now. So we don't need to set up emails, but there are instances we get maybe 2 or 3 customers a year that do want to set up their email notifications. And in order to do so, you would just need your SMTP information from your service provider, and you can fill that information out. IP filter. This allows you to either whitelist or blacklist a specific IP address. The other way to do it is not through IP address, but the other way to allow users is username and password. You can just create their own username and password. That's the easier way. Voice assistant. Amazon and Google. Amazon's kind of getting phased out. The Google one does work. And able to do that, you just need to create your account, bind this to the specific channel that you're using, and be able to use your Google device to watch it on your monitor. Platform access, third-party access. If they're pulling any kind of network stuff and they need to have those reports come through, they'll do that through here. RTMP as well, and event push notifications to that third-party platform would be here. Storage, again, hard drive. If 9 times out of 10 you're getting a hard drive from us, we're going to already have this set up for you in terms of the hard drive being formatted, right? But there are instances where you do have multiple hard drives. You can set them in groups, and reason being is load balancing. This particular recorder only has 1 hard drive, but if there are, you can add multiple groups, and I can have my group 1 take care of half my cameras, group 2 take care of the other half. It makes a little less processing on the hard drives when they're recording. So something to keep in mind, or you can have them all in one group. It's preference, user preference. And there's a smart function if you want to test the hard drive to see how it performs. We do have a test feature. And then lastly, you can add a NAS. The NAS is up to 2 terabytes. So a network drive, as long as you have the information, you can add another 2 terabytes on the network. And then I did touch briefly on cloud. This is not a full cloud solution. You can do Dropbox, and it's only 2 cameras. So I can enable up to 2 cameras. It's kind of like a fail-safe. We've had instances where we get break-ins, someone steals the recorder, and I want to have just a couple important cameras, maybe the front door, maybe a register. I can load a couple cameras to have some video on a Dropbox, and the Dropbox would be, that'd be up to user to set that up and, have that account. That's nothing we taking care of. They have to have that information and allow the Dropbox to have a couple cameras record to it. Lastly, FTP, file transfer protocol. If you guys are familiar with that, you can set up a server on a PC on the network. Again, it's another way to do a fail-safe. It's just going to back up the cameras to another device, right? Other than the recorder. It's just somewhere else to have files back up. Someone steals a recorder, you have this on a FTP, and you can set a schedule to it. Just a quick thing to remember, when it does record to the FTP, it only records in raw footage, not AVR or MP4. So you will need our software to play that video back. Okay, and lastly, system. I went briefly over on the time, but just to go over these really quick. General, I can name my NVR here, any name that I want. Device ID, we don't got to worry about. This is for if you have multiple devices on a network and you want to give them different IDs just to help identify them. Do that here. Language, NTSC is what we use here in the States. PAL is used in other countries, but we use it if you are watching this from another country. You guys probably use PAL, but here in the US, we do use NTSC. Idle lock time, this is going to lock the menus and require you to log back in after a certain amount of time. I always turn this off because it does get annoying having to log in every time I go to my NVR. And then web timeout. I can set a specific time of when up to 144 minutes of when I want to time out the web if I'm going to the web GUI. And then lastly, show the wizard. Upon first installation, I can turn this off and not have to worry about the wizard popping up every time. I went over daylight savings, output configuration, pretty important. By default, the NVR will auto detect what the monitor or TV plugged into it is, up to 4K, right? There are some instances where you do have to manually go ahead and change this. Older monitors sometimes won't detect, or sometimes you just have to change it to adjust the scale on it. And if you do need to adjust the scale, you can do that here, right? If it's taking up too much, I can either scale it down or set left, right, up, down to fit the parameters of my monitor. Again, here's the auto recognition option. I can cursor delay, cursor acceleration, and then transparency of my menus. Of course, you want to see the menus nice and clear, so I have that set to 0. And then privacy statement, this is just goes over how the data is being collected on the AI stuff. This just covers us with our customers on how stuff's collected. Right? Multi-user, pretty important. Again, you can have up to 32 users, and we've tested up to 21 logins per user. So that's a lot of users we can have. And then again, if you are making a second user, you want to make sure that it, for one, is enabled, and then for two, that we set the permissions correctly. I have a lot of people create users and then forget to go in there and enable some of these permissions, like remote login. Very important if you're going to do a next user, but I can also determine what they want to see and not see for that particular user. So, and let's say, for instance, I create a user for an employee, that person leaves. All I have to do is come in here and disable that user, right? I don't have to actually change the password or username to the account. Right? Maintenance, real quick, this is the last of it, guys. Load defaults. If I need to load default out of the box, I can do that here. Firmware updates. This is where you'll select the file, go ahead and load the firmware through here. Perimeter management. I could save settings and import and export them to multiple recorders. I don't have to go through the whole process I just went through on multiple recorders. I can set it up on one, save those settings, go to my next recorder, and just import. Right? And auto reboot. We don't have to have this on. If you do want to do a reboot just to refresh the NVR on a daily, monthly, or weekly basis, I'm able to do that. And of course, lastly, developer mode. That's for us. Users or installers don't really have to worry about this option. And the last two, guys, IP camera maintenance. All the stuff that I can do or need to do, rather, to an IP camera that's plugged in, that is a Bolide camera. I can do a firmware update. I can load defaults to the camera. I can reboot a camera. Parameter management. I can set up one camera and then import, export those settings to multiple cameras. And then lastly, if the camera does have an SD card installed in it, I can format that camera from the NVR itself, which is a very helpful tool, right? Because when you get your SD cards in there, You don't have to format each camera. You can load them all and then go do them all at once. So it's a very helpful tool. And then lastly, I touched on system information on the toolbar in the beginning. Again, this is that same information that we went through originally. We're going to get basic information, channel information, record information, and network state. And that's going to be it, guys. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them now. Next webinar, I'm probably going to go more in depth into our AI stuff, playback stuff. This one ran a little long. I don't want to keep you guys much longer. It's been way over an hour. But we'll probably have a part 2 of this, and to go a little more in depth into some of the stuff that we get questions about, right? And that's it, guys. Again, I'll leave this open for a couple minutes. You guys have any questions? Thank everybody for joining me. I hope this is helpful. This will be on YouTube later on today. Feel free to share this with your customers. Share this as a tool. You know, it's here for you guys. And I'm gonna leave this open for some questions. So I got a question. How do we maximize the picture for image capture? If you're referring to just the image itself, and let me come here, back here. It is going to be a 1080 image, so it's not going to be full quality. Yeah, we can just set the intervals. Yeah, that's how maximizing it. It's just an image. So we're watching video. It's just going to be an image we'd have to download. Another question here. Is this the same GUI for the PC software? The PC software or VMS, very similar. I'll probably do a webinar on that as well because it is very similar to this. It's a little different, but once you have your way around one, you'll know your way around both. But yeah, I'll probably do a webinar on the VMS in the next couple months as well, just to go over that. We have a full training regimen. Is this the same GUI for all recorders? It is. This is the same GUI for all recorders. Of course, higher capacity recorders will have more channels. Like the 64 channel, 256 channel does not have the PoE option here. It'll just be, does not have the PoE power option. It'll just be the search option because it's a higher capacity and doesn't have it built in. So yeah. Another question, do NVRs do RAID? Yes. Good question. Our higher capacity NVRs do have the RAID option. We're going to go back here. Storage, hard disk, RAID 1 through 10. Keep in mind that if you do use RAID, you are going to need more hard drives, right? So just keep that in mind. Another question, do I have to use all the PoE ports on the NVR? No. Beauty about our NVRs, you don't have to use any of the PoE ports on the NVR. If you want to use separate PoE switches, got that covered. Again, I did add in the beginning, these cameras here are added from a separate PoE switch. You can see I only have channel 1 plugged in. That's the only channel that's using my internal PoE of the NVR. These other 2 are added from separate PoE switches. Another question on volume grouping. I did touch on that a little bit. Again, on the grouping, this takes a little depth. If you are using multiple cameras on a higher capacity recorder, 64 channel, very good question. The grouping on the channels on the hard drive maxes out at 32. So if you're using 64 channel, you do have to make multiple groups for the recorder. 1 through 32 will be on group 1. This particular recorder only has one drive in here. But yeah, in my next webinar, I'll definitely go into more, like I said, more in depth into more specifics like AI, how to set up how to set up multiple groups, how to set up RAID. I'll go over that stuff on the next one. Yeah. What if I don't set if you don't set the volume groups correctly, That's my next question. You're not going to get, it's not going to record correctly. So you do get a message on the screen that it will prompt you saying, hey, you can only record 32 channels to a group. So it will prompt you to say that. But sometimes customers will just click it off, ignore that message. You do want to make sure that you have your groups set up correctly when you have multiple groups and higher capacity recorders. Yeah. Here's another. Do the NVRs have more than one WAN port? So our higher capacity NVRs do have more than one LAN port. Reason being, since they don't have PoE ports, you want to be able to separate the networks. You'll have one WAN port for your cameras, one WAN port going to your network. So yes, they do have multiple WAN ports. Two WAN ports on our 464, 256 channel NVRs. I think that's it. Have some good questions, guys. I want to thank everybody for sticking around. We went way over an hour. It lasted almost an hour and a half. Those who stuck around, thank you very much. I hope this is very helpful for you guys. Again, this will be on YouTube later on today. And thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys next month, and have a good one.